see you again. Tunde, nice to see you. Michael, great work you're doing. Yeah, I mean, these are three technologies that are very, very useful to real estate that, we're talking about. Real estate by its nature is indivisible and it's very, very static. All right. And so this creates challenges when it comes to trading on them, doing transactions, measuring them, registering them, and just making it a solid investment that is foolproof, right? So that's why all these technologies, play a good role. So I'll just go over them one after the other. So something like blockchain, all right? Blockchain is essentially, infallible ledgers, that can be used to store, information. Now, in its application to real estate, it can be used, to lock in transaction details. And the primary kind of transaction details that it can be used for is really actually even the titles in itself. All right. So this is being used in, several countries currently to make sure that their title systems are not, cannot be compromised. So blockchain can be used in that context. And, there are a few countries that are beginning to experiment with this. So that's one brilliant use case, of blockchain. Another interesting technology that you talk about is IoT devices. So IoT devices enable you to be able to see, engage with, and interact with whatever there's an IoT device assigned to it from a remote location. This has implications in real estate because when you have IoT devices on a property, you can then inspect that property, or you can engage with that property even from a remote location. You can see what's going on there. You can measure, you can carry out inspections, you can just see what's going on. So this is definitely very useful in, for example, in commercial real estate, in retail malls, to count, footfall, to see how people, what shops people are going into, how people are engaging with the space. It's useful to plan concerts, all right, to be able to, just see how people are going to engage, with a commercial space. It's also useful in operational real estate settings like industrial real estate, to be able to engage with how, the space is being used. And so you're able to plan, for space utilization more properly once you are able to adapt the right IoT devices. And of course, artificial intelligence as well. But in its purest form, I like more of like the machine learning perspective, where you're able to engage with data, sometimes big data, to understand user behavior, transactions that they would like to perform. What are the features, characteristics that the users want in a property. So these are all very, very revolutionary, just thinking about it, in the sense that it can make transactions entirely much more seamless. All right. It can make investors more certain on how to deploy capital, how the real estate that they've deployed capital to is behaving. And, it essentially, makes it, just helps to make a better investment decision. So these are all technologies that, attack the real estate value chain in different manners, all right? But they are super useful in getting a primary outcome, which is making for, a better investment case.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayo, for that, sharing that insight with us. So I hear you when you talk about the AI, blockchain, and IoT making transactions more seamless, right? And also helping investors to make better decisions. So, so thank you for that insight. But so, Ms. Sitebe, I would also like to get your own insight too from this particular this question.
Thank you so much. I think Tayo covered quite a bit in terms of that space, but for me, AI is the most exciting. And I think in terms of other ways that it can be used is for property searches and recommendations. AI can be able to assess your needs as a consumer versus what is available in the market, and be able to make it easier for you to find properties that meet your actual preferences, and also be able to predict its performance in the future. It also works with your VR and AR, including, what is it called? Improving the buyer's experience, where we are now seeing, particularly in our continent, where we are seeing a lot of the diaspora come back home. This improves their experience. They're able to view and access a lot of properties. I can't wait to see that start happening in a much larger scale in the continent. Obviously, in property valuations, which is an area of particular interest to us, AI is, the AI algorithms are very useful in terms of determining different factors around the affinity that people have towards specific properties. So it's really helpful in terms of actually predicting much closer the valuation or the value of a property. There's also another aspect, which is document analysis, which I believe will elevate the experience of practitioners when you need to be reviewing a large number of documents. We know that our industry has got a lot of documents that need to be reviewed: contracts, leases, financial statements, all sorts of things, whether it's from a financing perspective or development feasibility perspective. So the aspect that AI provides in document analysis is quite interesting, and I think it will elevate how we provide our services as real estate practitioners going forward. I do believe that from a customer perspective, it is definitely going to give us better customer experience, increase efficiency, and reducing costs for the industry, and also force a lot of the experts to have a much more extensive or stronger perspective, because they will have insights at their fingertips. And then when it comes to blockchain, what I believe we'll be able to see, again, smart contracts. I'm not a big fan of blockchain. I see it more of as something that can be explored in terms of obviously keeping the right records, audit and security and the like. I don't see a lot of creativity myself, but I'm definitely watching it to see what it's going to be able to deliver. So with blockchain, we're looking at obviously smart contracts, title and ownership records across the continent. We have a lot of room for improvement in terms of maintaining title and ownership records for real estate. So there's a lot of room there, and also what blockchain provides for tokenization of real estate and being able to trade it online. IoT, which also has its own challenges. We're looking at it delivering smart homes, smart buildings, connecting all sorts of appliances, security systems. I actually look forward to a time where the house is able to order grocery and grocery gets delivered on the basis of the consumption of our household. But then also it would have to deal with the lack of electricity and the expensive internet that we have in the continent. So it's an interesting thing to see how we are going to be able to deal with that, and what kind of innovations we are going to be able to deliver within the Proptech space.
Okay, thank you, Sitebe, and thank you for sharing your insights, right, on the power of using the power of AI, the blockchain, and IoT. I mean, I think this is something that we should all be incorporating. And so my next question will be going to Tunde Balogun. So my question is, how do you see the real estate industry evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And how can emerging technologies like the AI, blockchain, and Internet of Things facilitate this evolution?
Thank you, Jennifer. Pleasure to be here. Good to see my brother, Tayo Odunsi, and my fellow panelists. So it's really an exciting time that we are in right now. And I think it's it's a matter of how open are we to explore. You know, when you talk about Internet of Things, machine learning, AI, I mean, some are, Internet of Things is not new. It's just that people are now expanding it to, different fields that probably before now weren't really using IoT on. AI is still getting the biggest buzz right now. Machine learning has also been, around for a bit, but let's bring it now to real estate. The way I look at it is today we talk about how fintech in Nigeria is, when you compare fintech to other parts of the world, we are way ahead in terms of how we move money in Africa or how we move money in Nigeria and all that, right? And I think for me, when I look at, the real estate space where a lot of people say, oh, it's a very traditional space and all of that. Yes, it's traditional, but at the same time, it's not enough reason for us not to explore. It's not enough reason for us not to try things out. And I think developing countries or developing world like ours always have that advantage where, we can go all in and choose to break things or build things, knowing that, the cost or the repercussion might not be that much compared to maybe developed country. Just like when you're looking at a startup to like maybe a fully fledged established organization for them to start new things, it's going to take them longer time. It's going to take them more resources and all of that. So I think the advantage, and I think that's one of the advantage fintech has enjoyed. And I think real estate also, we can take a cue from that. My company, for example, at the beginning of this year, one of the challenges we threw at ourselves at small is really how are we going to take advantage of AI in product development, machine learning. I mean, when we talk about the challenges in real estate, one of the big challenges is data. That if we don't have data, we can't really. There's just a lot of information out there that it's hard to back it up with data, right? And we are not going to get it right by accident, right? It's really just going to be people doing the work, and for us, we've been data driven from day one. Going by the nature of our organization, being a Proptech, right? But at the same time, there are different layers to technology. You can be running technology, at the surface level where you're really not, your data is really not saying much. You are just a little bit better than a traditional real estate company that maybe is using paper and book to write things and review things, right? You are just a little bit better than them. So what really would, create that shift and really push this industry, the real estate industry, is how far we are willing to go in experimenting, in exploring with, tools like or new frontiers like, AI, machine learning and all of that. So back to what I was saying, like part of our goal at the beginning of this year is how we're going to implement AI, machine learning, and just take things to the next level in order to really be at the top of contributing to the progress of real estate, housing, particularly because for us, housing is a basic human need. And if we are not making all the necessary improvements, if we are not putting right structure and system in place, we're just going to get to a time where it's going to be a bomb in our face, because Nigeria is a huge country, huge population. We're going to be the third largest population in the world by 2050, after India and China and all of that. So our housing market in itself has huge challenges and huge, opportunities. So what are we doing about it today? So, and that's why we are going that direction, where a typical example is our co-ownership product under Buy Small, where, when people buy shares in a property, we talked about blockchain, right? Their certificate of ownership of the shares they own in those property, they are registered through blockchain. They can access the certificate at any time. And even AI, when you talk about, machine learning for us, one of the ways we're doing it is we have people engaging with our products almost every time, right? Yes, we have data that we have, but your capacity and ability to interpret those data to make decision, or to be able to kind of help the market move forward in a way that people can even use your data, is one thing that I realized that was missing in all the 4 years that or 4 to 5 years. And that was one of the reasons why we say, okay, machine learning has to really be a very key component of how we, engage with data and how we even capture data. So there's a revamp of our platform that is happening right now. And I think, by second quarter of the year, we're already in the second quarter of the year. By third quarter of the year, we should have that ready, and it's really something I'm excited about. So yeah, not to say too much, I think the biggest take for me is that people should be willing to explore, experiment, and just try these things. Let's break, let's build, and see where we can go, so that when people are talking about real estate advancement with technology and all of that, they can point to Nigeria, just like they always point to payment advancement in countries like Nigeria compared to maybe the US or UK, where they are still far behind. When you are transferring money, it still take longer than it takes in a country like Nigeria, that is a developing country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tunde. Thank you for also pinpointing the fact that before the real estate can also even evolve, it needs to, we need to start from us ourselves to be able to explore new innovations, right? And you also pinpointed one of the challenges is also one of the challenges in the real estate is also data capturing. So if we or those in the Proptech space can try to explore these new innovations, make use of the blockchain, the AI and IoT, I think before the 5 years time, 6 years time would really be evolving and doing big things in the real estate industry. Okay, so Mr. Michael, would also like to get your own insight too from this particular question.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the panelists and everybody joining. So like Tunde just said, we either innovate or we die, right? Real estate is one of those sectors that it's like the oldest, sector in the world, right? And the truth is, some of the challenges that we face today, right? The emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, IoT actually coming to help us solve some of these challenges. One thing that is a big problem for us in the industry right now is the openness, right? Real estate is sort of shrouded in secrecy, right? Where a technology like blockchain, brings about transparency, and AI brings about how we learn from past actions to be able to make, informed decisions about what the future is going to look like. So the truth is that we have all of these things at our disposal. And if we do not innovate, we all die a natural death, right? Now, I see the real estate sector, I'm actually very excited about things happening in the next 5 to 10 years in the real estate sector, if you can take advantage of these emerging technologies. So I used to have a friend who was the only child of his parents, right? My friend had an opportunity to travel abroad when he was 18, right? And because he lives with his mom who has health challenges, right? My friend could not travel, right? And he missed out on a very good opportunity. Now, the problem, because he was the only child, right? He needed to tend to his mom, right? Because of his health challenges. Now, imagine a world where he is not bounded by the health challenges of his mother to grab the opportunity being presented to him. If there was something like smart home where he could monitor the health status of the mom in real time, right? There's something the health guys are doing for us where you can practically subscribe, please your mom or your older, your senior citizen on an health plan where they don't have to be dependent on you being physically around, right? A lot of opportunities will not have been missed, right? Think about things like AI, right? So for example, if you, in Lagos, Nigeria today, say you want to own a property in Ikoyi, if I ask today, give me a 2-bedroom in Ikoyi, what would be the price? And in the next 5 years, what do you think the price will be? Today will probably give me the price of a 2-bedroom in Ikoyi today, based on the data Tunde has from small. If I go to Northcote, Tayo, say, okay, you know what? I need a 2-bedroom in Ikoyi today. And what do you think the projection is going to be in like 5 years? Northcote is going to tell me, you know what? Based on data we have, right? This is what the projection is going to look like. And then if you come to someone like us, we're also going to give you maybe a different projection. The truth is that if we don't learn to collaborate, right, as players in this sector, we're going to sit on enormous data on our own side of the world, on our own side of the business, and then you are going to sit on your own data, and then the collaboration to be able to make informed prediction and decision towards what the future is going to look like, right, would just be decentralized. And that's a problem because that is what we currently have. For example, you want to rent a home in maybe Lekki, you get an agent, that's like the traditional way you do it now. An agent will give you, based on his own experience and estimate, oh, this space is worth, say, 2 million or 4 million a year. And then you go to another person, he tells you, but if you can aggregate our data, right, as players in the sector, all this make us make informed decision that makes like the entirety of the transaction is now open to, you know, everybody and is no longer shrouded in secrecy. So for me, I think the most important thing for me is that we take advantage of these emerging technologies, right? AI, IoT, blockchain, and the likes. So that's like the most important, like most pressing thing for me, how we can, you know, embrace openness that comes with these technologies, how we can collaborate based on data that we have as individual players in this sector, and how we can use this data to make informed decisions, right? So that it comes to the benefit of all in the sector. So that's what I see the real estate sector, at least in this part of the world, imagine on in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you. Jennifer, I think you're mute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Michael, for this for sharing your insights on this particular question. This is just like a call for all the players in this sector, right? In the Proptech sector, right? You guys we need to learn to collaborate with one another, like based on individual data. We really need to come together and collaborate together so that you guys can be able to make like informed decisions, and then also the willingness to also explore new innovations. I think enough of the traditional methods. It's now time, like the call now for everyone to explore new innovations, no more traditional methods and all. So my next question would be going to Sitebe Manake. So my question is, what are the biggest challenges facing the adoption of these emerging technologies in the real estate industry, and how do you think these challenges can be overcome?
Okay, I'm going to start with the biggest and most obvious, this fear of change across the continent. Like Michael's mentioned earlier, that this is an old industry. It's an old industry with a lot of old and players who've been experienced, who have been in the industry for a long time, set in their ways, and have got very set ways of doing things, relationships that are set, all those processes are kind of set. So as a change or as a major challenge, or what makes it very difficult to work through them, is that anytime you talk about technology, first of all, they perceive it to be something that is there to take over, as opposed to technology being a tool that can enhance exactly how they provide their services, or exactly how we provide our services for one. So for as a challenge, that mindset change needs to happen in order for us to be able to utilize technology in a much more productive or innovative manner. The other one is really how we expect the technologies that we build. There isn't room for us to innovate, to test in the market before verification and validation. So we have to go through a lot of hoops before we have got any kind of adoption, whether it's from the professional perspective or from businesses that we work with. And like, everybody wants any technology that you bring to them to be validated, to be verified. So there isn't room for that innovative process, that testing ground for you to go through, so that you can be building more and more things. We don't have a forgiving environment when it comes to technology. We have to do, like, in terms of our requirement for MVP in the continent, it's absolutely a lot higher than in developed countries, because they develop with their customers, while for us, there isn't that room for you to iterate and for customers to give you good feedback and for you to iterate. There isn't that forgiving environment. And then definitely data access. This is everywhere. The amount of data that we need to iterate, to develop, to even utilize fully. I mean, sometimes when you try to implement certain technologies to enhance your solutions, there isn't enough out there for you to test whether it's accurate or not. You just have what you have, and we work through it. And as innovators, we have to work through it, but the data is there. If there could only be access to that data, or that freedom of data without fear. And I go back to the first thing, the one that's most obvious. It's just fear of change, fear of testing, fear of exploration. That is the biggest hindrance into just adoption of technology across the continent. And then, yeah, I think those are the ones that that come out quite clearly to me. And also overregulation. That's a big challenge that I think we haven't started seeing a lot of it in the Proptech space, but the reactions to fintech tell you that if they start working on the Proptech space, we might start having a bit of problems. So I do wish that when we look at different solutions, we could be looking more from an innovative perspective of encouraging or developing a good environment for innovation and exploration, as opposed to the reverse.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tebe. I think one of my key takeaways from this particular question, or one of my key takeaways from what you just said, is our mindset. We need to change our mindset, right? You don't need to feel that or think that, okay, using the new innovations can probably take away people's jobs and all, but we should also have that mindset that this AI, these new innovations are just here to help improve efficiency and then productivity. So we should also change our mindset and all. And then Michael Owolabi, I would also like to get your own insights to this question. So what are the biggest challenges facing the adoption of these emerging technologies in the real estate industry? And how can these challenges be overcome?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest, like Setebe mentioned, is people are resistant to change. And that's not to say even those of us who are building in this sector are not affected by this. Everybody is resistant to some form of change or the other, right? The truth is, we need to have like a mindset shift internally first, like start with us. So for example, in Lagos, we have our same problem, which I believe is in most major cities of the world. The question is, what are some of the ways we can solve this problem? I see people who are, I think in Lekki phase 1, I saw a property that was from start to finish, built up within 6 weeks, a 2-bedroom, right? The question is, how are we embracing technologies like this to leverage on technologies like this to, solve the house efficiency problem that we have, right? So we need to have like a mindset shift. The natural way that the real estate sector works is I do mine, you do yours. Whoever has access to the best of information is the one that has an edge, right? And like I said the other time, if we don't learn to collaborate, right, we will be stuck in that age where things are not standardized. There's a lot of secrecy, and then we can't leverage the data that we have individually when we come together, right? We can't leverage it properly if we continue to work in silos, right? Another challenge to the adoption of technology like this is the people. So for example, I think we make this mistake in tech where we believe sometimes I've talked to people who believe that tech is supposed to, just take away the old and usher in the new, like completely. The truth is, how do I build in such a way that the real estate agent guy who is on the street doesn't feel excluded, right? Because these are still the guys who eventually have that physical touch with the tenants and the likes. So how am I building my technology in such a way that everybody is included? So that when I start to mention how some of these technologies can help us as an industry, right? They are not resistant to it, right? So we need to start thinking of a way to include everyone when we are building, right? And not just building silo, right? Another thing is cost, right? These things aren't cheap. So for example, the IoT device, to make a smart home today, like these aren't cheap technologies. And because we are still in the beginning phase of some of these things, cost is still a barrier to this. And especially in a continent like ours, where, a developing economy like ours, people don't really have that disposable income to, invest in things like this. So cost is still a problem. These are like the things I can think of for now that are, like an hindrance to the adoption of these technologies, at least in Africa. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. You still pinpointed on how the importance of collaboration and how we should include everyone when building. So it's very, very important because, like you said, it's a challenge to it, or it's one of the biggest challenges in the real estate sector. So collaboration is very, very important. When you're building, you should also include those that will be in close contact also with the tenants. Like, just make sure everybody is inclusive when building or using even this AI and all, making use of this new innovations and all. The importance of collaboration cannot be overemphasized. Okay, so my next question will be going to Mr. Tayo. So Mr. Tayo, how do you think, how can AI, the blockchain and Internet of Things be leveraged to improve the efficiency and accuracy of real estate transactions? And what benefits will this bring to buyers, sellers, and other stakeholders in the real estate ecosystem?
Yeah, I think I'll go with blockchain first. Blockchain is super useful in making sure that documented information is, kept secure, all right, and safe in an infallible state. So some variants of blockchain, are utilized in contracts, in titling, and in keeping financial information, right? And this is currently already used in some parts of the world, and can be utilized, in Nigeria and an African context as well. For IoT devices, a lot of smart real estate that we see, opening your blinds, these that are like first level IoT, utilizations, to bring some level of comfort and luxury, if you will, into housing and commercial real estate, to be honest. But I think IoT devices are also very useful for making real estate assets more secure, better managed, and even the construction activities, better supervised. And when the construction activities, leveraging IoT devices that helps managers remotely see, listen in, manage, construction activities, also to control even construction equipment, the final output is definitely of better quality. I quickly learned in my career that you get what you inspect, you don't get what you expect. In managing transactions, projects, people, you get what you inspect, you don't get what you expect. And IoT devices are super critical, for remotely inspecting. A manager may not be able to be in all 10 locations or sites that he's managing, but he can have, IoT devices, imputed on all 10 sites. He can have IoT devices, controlling critical machines, in all 10 sites. And so, he can guarantee the outcome, or at least, see, what's going on there, and to a large extent guarantee the outcome. And so the final product that comes to the market, is solid. So I'm a big fan of IoT, because it's relatively inexpensive and can be fairly quickly deployed. Because these are a lot of these things are now, easily picked up, off the shelf hardware, devices that, can just be snapped together to, to make stuff work for you in your own context. You just need to think about it. Okay, there's this device that can, push a button on and off. You attach it to a machine, and remotely, once you tap on your phone or your computer, it turns that machine on and it turns it off remotely. So you just buy the plug-in, boom, very simple. So I feel that, just to talk about the challenges that, Setebia and Michael touched on, there's just quite a lot of lack of knowledge, and willingness to change, and to adopt these things, because these are things that are fairly simple. They're so simple in my head that I just wonder why, it's not being adopted, but it's back to lack of, knowledge. And of course, buzzword with the advent of ChatGPT is artificial intelligence, right? Which I don't even know how artificial it is, because if you look back at what artificial intelligence is leveraging on, it's still leveraging on human intelligence that has been aggregated and found as correct, right? But yes, it's bringing forward, the correct answer. It's bringing forward best practice to you in any scenario that you ask it to, to provide you information, right? And that's super useful in every sector, and particularly in real estate, because is it transactions? It's telling you accurate prices. It's telling you accurate demand. It's giving insight into accurate supply. This is what's available. And any aggregator platform that has aggregated what's the current supply of a particular type of real estate in the market. You ask it, boom, boom, boom. It tells you what exactly it is. That's novel. That cost millions of naira just 10 years ago to know. but now it's available, for us to be able to adapt, AI to, we're just waiting for, Split and Rest and small to make it available for us in app format. So the utilizations of artificial intelligence is just limitless in finally bringing transparency to otherwise opaque real estate markets like ours. It's veritable to be able to achieve that. And if you know anything about transparency, money follows transparency. Investors follow transparent markets. They enter into track because they can see it, they can see their exits, they can see the opportunities, they can see the challenges, they have information on transaction dynamics, what should they expect, what shouldn't they expect, what are idiosyncrasies, that are prevailing in that market. And so if we can begin to adapt artificial intelligence more to the local real estate market, I dare say, death of foreign investors, local investors, would definitely be a thing of the past. It has that ability to stimulate investments from all quarters. I think just to kind of round off, on the impact and, just talk about, what I kind of see, happening is one of the reasons why a lot of adoption isn't yet happening, of these technologies in real estate is because of the mismatch in demographics, right? A lot of real estate decision makers, Jennifer, you wouldn't invite them to this call because they're so much older, they don't understand these concepts, right? They don't understand these utilizations. And when Michael or myself are telling them, they say, what do you know? And because of the small successes that they've achieved, and that's something that is prevailing in this part of the world, and I dare say in Africa, small successes, almost deafen us and blind us, from what is absolutely achievable. And so we rest on our oars and we don't, yield to do much more. So, and on the other hand, the demand is coming from younger demographics to understand what's going on, to see these transparencies, to have these luxuries that IoT, blockchain, and what have you provide. But the supply, the decision makers are that they don't understand this, they are not willing to invest in these technologies. And so that mismatch is what is causing the friction that we see today. And that's why we're having this conversation. But, I remember when I was younger, there was one man that always tells, when he greets me, he calls me the young shall grow, So the young shall grow is one of the easiest prophecies to make. So as the young grows and the young become the decision makers, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that all these technologies will become adopted. So it's a matter of time, right? Some of us are getting ahead of it, all right, but it's only a matter of time because the young shall grow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayo. I mean, this is also still a wake-up call to the elderly ones. I mean, they're still yet to, or they still don't want to explore these new technologies and all. I mean, and then, yeah, it also pinpointed how the blockchain and IoT and everything, and how it's improving efficiency, accurate transactions, the ability to simulate investment, and then accurate supply and demand. And I mean, this is really good. So we all should really, we all really need to start making use of this AI, blockchain, and IoT. We need to change our mindset and explore these new innovations. And then, Mr. Tunde, so how can AI, blockchain, and IoT be leveraged to improve the efficiency and accuracy of real estate transactions?
Thank you for the question. I think my brother has said a lot. He's a man of intelligence, high intelligence, a man that I enjoy listening to all the time. So, I mean, when I look at the gap or disparity between the younger generation, our generation, and the older, I think the danger is really in us, the younger generation, who are supposed to take things to the next level. The danger is more on us not being able to do that than those that, like Tyler said, that they've kind of enjoyed some level of success and they've kind of settled and they are older. And yes, our real estate, when you look at Nigerian real estate, you see a lot of really old folks, right? Like my grandma, our brother who is in his late 80s, one of the oldest real estate titan, Taiwo Ali, in Nigeria. He's still practicing. I remember about 3 years ago, I still went to visit him in his office in Yaba, and so like I can't fault him for however, I couldn't even propose whatever I'm doing or for them to adopt it, because again, this man is already in his 80s, going into his 90s. He is one of those like, still want to be on the field and all that, and ask people. But for, like I said, it's really on us to really take things to the next level. If we are not able to do that for our generation and the generation that to come, then that is where the real big fail is. But speaking to the question efficiency, I would like to take it to, even basic things. For example, at small, one of the things that we're building right now, and I might be kind of putting this information out of my engineers, my CTO, but with, for example, inspection, right? A lot when you take one way people or one solution that is readily available for inspection is VR, 3D rendering and all of that, virtual reality for people to see the property and all of that. And that is still going to take time before I don't even think there will ever be a time where we have a full adoption of that or 100% adoption of that, because real estate is one of the touch and feel like kind of thing. You are going to be, whether it's a house you're going to be living in or it's a commercial real estate or whatever it is, right? There's the touch and feel element to real estate, right? So if it's not virtual reality or whatever it is that can help people make decision, or I want to rent that place, I want to buy that place, then when it comes to how people engage with inspecting properties, and being able to make informed decision, what are the tools that can guide people beyond I've seen 5 properties, I like this. So one solution that we are currently building, which is a combination of IoT and AI, is where when people go on inspection, our field guys that take people on inspection, we geomap their engagement and the places they go, and that with that geotagging, we are able to see what is happening, where they are, and where the tenant, the prospective tenants they've visited, and at the end of that, we want to be able to send almost like a review of their inspection to them, have them map all the places they've been to in real time, send a review to them or a form of report to them that they can now review it and be able to say, and have AI give them some level of, based on whatever data they've given us prior to, even going on inspection, what they want to see and all of that. Because there's now a follow-up to, I'm interested in 2-bedroom, I'm interested in, and sometimes the field agent will take them to like maybe 3 properties, 4 properties, or 5 properties. And after they've gone on inspection, the next question is, which property are you interested in? Or they themselves say, I want this, right? But we just don't want to leave it to that. Moving things forward means helping people to reach a decision faster, and also not just reach a decision faster, make the best decision where the place they are going to move in or live in is somewhere that at the end of the day they will be happy. There's a level of satisfaction that comes with it, right? And with this kind of solution that we are currently building, where we've mapped all the places they've been, we've we are giving interpretation of those places with AI and maybe some some contribution from the field guys or whatever that looks like. That would help them make a better decision, and that would help them even remember Because sometimes you visit, I mean, when I'm looking for properties or I'm trying to rent or buy, you know, in the last few years that I've been in real estate, when I go to those, when I go to those properties, I don't remember everything, you know. So I think this is a solution that we are looking forward to having already. Our engineers are working at it, and I think it's going to, I mean, we're building it for ourselves, but eventually we might even open it up to, you know, other adopters in real estate. Split might be interested in using a solution like that. Talking about the collaboration that you know, Michael mentioned, we can't advance things without collaboration. I've always said it. It's really just about how we really collaborate. How are we going to make it happen? It's not enough to say it. It's actually in the actualization of it, you know. So there needs to be a way we actually make that happen. And I think whatever solution everybody is doing, whatever everyone is building, whatever we think will advance the industry or bring efficiency, if we are not still able to collaborate, then I don't think there's so much we can do or so much advancement we can experience in the industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tunde. So, I mean, you all have all heard it. We all need to learn to collaborate, you know, so that we can also improve efficiency, right, while using the real estate transactions and all. And then, yeah. So this brings me to my next question, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that are trying. There are a lot of people that probably would not want to explore these new technologies because they might feel that, I mean, using these new technologies can take their jobs from them. For example, now, if maybe from your house now or from your office, you can probably turn off the AC turn off your AC in your house, or maybe from somewhere distance, right? You can also open your gate or even close the gate. I mean, you might not even have a gatesman. I mean, so a lot of people are trying to resist that, resist to explore new innovations. So this brings me to my next question to Mr. Tayo. So, Mr. Tayo, what impact will these technologies have on the real estate job market, and what skills will be most in demand in the industry in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very great question, because it borders on, you know, something that I'm very keen on, which is education, right? I've always told people that real estate, you know, reminds me of one of my good friends who, you know, we went to school together. We studied real estate in school, and he wanted to marry this girl, and he went to meet the girl's father. And you know, the man asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, "I do real estate." And the man said, "Is that a profession? Shouldn't you just buy houses and build houses and this? Is that a profession?" You know, and I, you know, as derogatory as some people on this call might find that, you know, the truth is that where the man was coming from is, you know, it's so multidisciplinary, right? Even a doctor coming into real estate would have some cognate experience that he will bring into the sector if he comes in. You know, there are just some skills he will bring in that will be beneficial and will make him do well at real estate. You know, so it's so multidisciplinary, and you know, the dimensions to which real estate is going right now is tilted heavily towards technology. So, not to give away my age, but I dare say when I started my career, the innovation dimension that real estate was going towards was not technology. It was going towards finance. It was going towards finance. 10, 15 years ago, what was critical, where innovation was coming into real estate was in financial models. And those that did well in knowing how to structure transactions, both from the development side of things or even from an investment side of things, those were the people that did well. And those were the skills you needed to get, you know, to do well in real estate. Today, the skills that you need, the innovation that you require is along the lines of technology, right? along the lines of technology, and it depends on the aspect of real estate that you're playing. If you're in the services segment and you sell and broker real estate, you would do well to understand a lot of the conversation that we've been talking about on artificial intelligence and machine learning, because that goes beyond you relying on your intellectual capability or your knowledge of the market to understand where there is demand and where supply is available. You're able to leverage, AI, to answer those questions and to do well on your role. It goes beyond adopting even, SEO and all of that. It goes far deeper, and makes you excel at it. So people just be wondering, this guy is a good broker. He's always selling. He's always, and all of that. But the guy is not doing anything the regular realtor does, wears a sharp suit and is networking and everything. He's adopting technology to meet his clients' requirements and to meet the clients where they are. So it's technology is here, right? It's here to stay, and really it is the major.
So I think Mr. Tayo might be
running away from. A lot of people look at, their investment strategy or financing strategy is to look at what their neighbor has done and what worked for their neighbor. Now, anyone that has entered a university, because the university is a research institution, you understand that one sample size or two being your neighbor and your other neighbor are not good enough to give you an accurate prediction of how your own transaction will pan out, because there might be so many factors that are not visible to the human eye or visible to you that inform your neighbor and your other neighbor's success. All right, and that's where artificial intelligence comes in, because it leverages big data. These are voracious amounts of data to arrive at this intelligence, essentially. All right. So across the real estate value chain, the various tools that we've discussed today have the capacity to change the industry, and anyone that, I think it was Michael that said it when he was opening, anyone that fails to innovate, has the, fears the, the outcome of death. Obviously not actually, but in terms of death and your practice, sometimes you see people that were thriving very well in a sector, they are dead. We can look into the banking sector in Nigeria to take cues. I remember one of my first bank account, was a mammoth of a bank that I opened the account in, and if I mention the name of that bank today, there are people on this call that will not know that bank. AfriBank. Is there anybody here that does not know AfriBank? The AfriBank does not exist anymore in any shape, form, or manner. And I can show you it was one of the top 5 banks in Nigeria then. But I shouldn't be too surprised, that they don't exist again. I remember back then, it was a full day's job to deposit money, and another full day's job, to withdraw money. Like, if they ask, what are you doing today? You just say you're going to the bank. That's it, full stop. Like, that's what you're doing that day. All right. And there were already some banks that were cutting down that journey to half a day, in a matter of hours. And, that's essentially how it is today. Some of us, people ask us, I want to buy a property and everything, and it takes us, we know how long, we don't have repositories, that can get us, you want this, boom, this was available, and they're like, oh, wow, that was fast. Once those things start to happen, those that are taking 1 week to answer the clients, what happens to them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayo. So we all know that technology is actually here to stay. So whatever skill we are learning, whatever we're doing, we should always know that technology should evolve around any skill that we're trying to acquire. So technology is actually here to stay. Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Tayo. Okay, so my next question is going to Ms. Setebe. So how can these technologies be used to enhance transparency and trust in real estate transactions? And what role do you see regulators playing in this process?
Okay, first of all, I think we've already explored a lot around how technology makes transactions transparent. Information is transparent. There's proper audit trail, who's involved in the transaction, what was the transaction happening at, and that just makes everybody's life a lot easier in terms of analyzing future transactions and also knowing where to be investing, where not to be investing, and all of that. That works for everybody who is looking at investing. It works a lot for the younger generation because we don't have years of experience of doing a lot of transactions and losing a lot of money in real estate for us to know where to be investing. So that's sort of, it's kind of sorted out. You have from your AI, your blockchain, and your machine learning. All of these things can provide us that predictive information that we need for that, and also to give us that transparency that we need. In a case where we talk about how many of us in each of our different countries are able to tell whether a plot is owned by one person or another, that's a transparency that we all sort of need. When you want to buy a property, you want to know that you're buying it from the rightful owner. So that's one of the things that definitely technology is able to give us. Now, in terms of what regulators can do or provide, or what role they play, first of all, our regulators tend to be looking at technology from a punitive, almost predatory perspective, where they see, oh, you can make money out of technology, therefore we need to tax it. And we need to tax it as quickly as possible. We need to tie it down so that it doesn't do what Facebook or Google or WhatsApp is doing to us and all of that. But I would submit that there is a different perspective that we need to look at. We're still very much at the very beginning, and it's not every technology that starts from the West that we need to bring down. It is upon us first as innovators in our continent to leverage off of our indigenous knowledge and the knowledge of our own, how we do things, our cultures, our nuances, and try and put that into the technologies that we build so that it can serve us. But for us to be able to do that, we need to have a more development-focused regulatory system. We need more facilitation. We need regulators that are trying to provide us a safe space for trying out things without being called a criminal right from the get-go if things fail. That becomes the first thing that when you go into technology, at one point or another, that comes out, and we need to be able to have these sandboxes that allow us to play with real transactions and to discover the actual challenges that we will face with our own people in order to build our own regulatory framework instead of adopting any of the regulatory frameworks from different jurisdictions, because those are quite, they give us a lot of hindrances, a lot of challenges, because some of the things that have been developed in those markets, we don't have them yet. So we need to develop them. We need to build the muscle. We need to build the infrastructure for that. The other one is that the role that government can provide or regulators can provide is oversight and monitoring. That is not punitive. Again, it shouldn't be punitive. It shouldn't be predatory. It should be more for developmental adjustments, to say, oh, this thing doesn't look like it's working well. Can you guys preview it this way? Or these are the challenges that it might present to society, to community, that you may not be aware of as an innovator, so that you can adjust and be able to build something that is more useful for your environment, and something that is more useful for us to grow at a continental rate. The other one is obviously encouraging industry collaboration, data access. I think a lot of our governments have rushed into data regulation and all of that simply because of the cases we're seeing in the UK and the US and Canada and all of that. A lot of our local technologies are not there. So instead of building regulation for the big companies, we need to be building regulations for our companies, for the local ones, to empower them, to enable them, to give them the room and the space to grow, instead of making it hard and fast such that we can't even get to that point simply because you can't access the data, or it's just too much of a hassle for you to be accessing information. I mean, when we talk about incorporating IoT and machine learning and all of that, we need a lot of information about movement of people. We need a lot of information about who the people we're dealing with are. We need a lot of transactional information for it to be meaningful to our users. And if we are required to isolate all of these things, we might isolate it to the extent that we are not able to provide any meaningful service to our users. So we need regulators who understand that we are not at that stage. We're not at that stage of that extent of regulation. I mean, these companies grew in an environment that enabled them to become the monsters that they are. We need to create our own monsters locally so that we can be able to battle in a global scale. And then the other thing, which is quite major, and it also speaks to the fear, it speaks to adoption, it also speaks to the mindset change. There is no startup that's in technology right now that has got the mass or the power to promote awareness and education around technology, the usefulness of it and all of that at our level. So this is something that should be done at a regulatory level. Instead of holding our hands back and saying we shouldn't provide certain kind of services, then it should be more educating the public, having public awareness on how to use technology in a responsible manner, and also how we can use technology in a responsible manner. How can we build solutions that are useful? So I would say, in terms of the role of the regulator, if I would pick 4 things, it would be definitely facilitation of innovation spaces, safe spaces. And the other one would be providing oversight and monitoring that is developmental and not punitive. And then encouraging industry collaboration and access to data, free access to data. And then obviously promoting education and awareness, public and for enterprise. We need to be looking at this holistically as trying to build an ecosystem that can compete globally, and we cannot compete globally if we get cut, our feet get cut before we start walking. While you're still crawling, you don't realize that you need to stand, and when it's time to stand, you realize that the regulator has already cut your feet. So those are things that I think from a regulatory perspective are absolutely important to carry on. And even in terms of when you go back to the issue of transparency, once we're able to do these things, once we have these spaces, then we know what should be transparent and available to the public, and what kind of learning should our AIs have access to, and what are the dangers of moving it in one direction or the other. And yeah, so that's what my view is in terms of both transparency and regulatory involvement. Your mic is off again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sitebe. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for pinpointing the importance of the regulators, right? In terms of, so for us to be able to, compete globally, we also need the regulators to also, bring out policies that will help us be able to compete globally in terms of talk about facilitation of safe spaces, also promoting awareness to the public, and also giving us free access to data, right? So with all this, right, I mean, I believe with the regulators backing us up, we'll be able to compete globally and also make use of these innovative technologies properly. Okay, so so I'll be moving to our next question. This next question will be directed to Mr. Tunde Balogun. So my question is, how can AI be used to optimize real estate valuations, and what are the potential risks and limitations of these models?
All right, thank you. I think Tayo will do justice to that question that myself, but I'll still take a shot at it. I mean, my company, we don't do that much valuation. I mean, we are now in sales through by small, and so we are still there's still a learning and but I mean, I think. So I'll give an example. In 2015, I moved back to Nigeria, and then I was at Mr. Bengalani's office, Estate Links in Bengalani, and then they needed to take, what's it called, do a survey of a property, and I mean, the typical way of trying to do the survey is going to take long. They just needed, there's an information they needed quickly, the land size, and all of that. And then I remember someone was in the office and the person had just mentioned that, oh, there's a tool on Google that allows you like kind of take the, what's it called? A measurement of the land where you can just position like your pin and all of that. And then we give you like the longitude and latitude, and just kind of, you have almost a real measurements or almost accurate measurement of the land, right? And right there in front of her, and I was looking at it myself, I even picked my phone and I was trying to do it. And that was the first time I experienced or I engaged that kind of tool when it comes to, measuring land and all of that. So when you think of right there, they could solve that problem by just going on Google, typing the address of the location, identifying where they needed to measure, and then being able to pin it and get the almost accurate measurement of the land. It just tells you that a lot can happen, in that space, especially property valuation and all of that, and it can happen faster. Valuation right now takes, I mean, if you are trying to, for example, mortgage, you are trying to take mortgage, right? The mortgage bank will tell you they have to do valuation and all of that of the whatever property you want to buy, and you pay for that as well. When we think of things that makes mortgage very expensive in Nigeria, it's not just the cost of the property or the interest, also other fees that you pay, that adds up. And it will be shocking to you how quickly these fees add up, when you look at valuation and so many other fees. We can start by just things that we can use technology to immediately ride on technology and be able to remove the chaps and be able to reduce costs. And one of such is, again, how valuation is done, where the mortgage bank will typically go to the field. I mean, there are still things that need to happen. It's not, technology is not, so it's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself, right? It's just a means to an end. We should never forget that. We should never get caught up in that, technology is this, right? And I think Michael mentioned that also, right? But we shouldn't just leave everything to the traditional way of doing things. The things that we can use technology to do, let's use technology to do it. The ones that we don't need technology to do, let's not, I mean, the one that we don't need, or maybe we're still in process of fine-tuning or finding a very robust technology to do it, then let's still do it, however we can do it. But if there's a technology solution available, let's leverage on it. And I think that's where, internet, one of the things I do these days is just looking for technology solution. Like looking, because I want to optimize my company so much that like things can run, we can automate everything, that I don't need to be available. I don't need to, like things can. So I invest a lot of I'm not the CTO, my CTO is doing, I mean, my team, they are doing a great job but personally, I'm looking for what are the technology solutions that are there that I can push to my guys And they know every day I'm sending something. I slept, I went to bed around 5 a.m. this morning. So I've only had like maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep, literally. And guess what I was doing? I was experimenting with technology solution. Literally, that was what I was doing. So I think, like I said, valuation, there are technology solutions available for that. And I think it's all about adoption, experimenting and exploring, and not getting caught up in the old, way and say, oh, it has to be done in the old way. So that's what I'll say to, valuation. Like I said, Tayo didn't say, you can do justice to that myself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tunde. I think I'll also ask the same question to Mr. Tayo. So Mr. Tayo, how do you think AI can be used to optimize real estate valuations, and what are the potential risks and limitations of these models?
Yeah, so I mean, valuations essentially have about 4 parts, right? Inspection, measurements, market analysis, and then you do the final computation. Like Tunde said, for inspections and measurements, there are technologies that we use. So for example, I remember one time someone wanted us to value land that was essentially in the creeks, and they were willing to pay a lot of money because they felt it to be very inaccessible and difficult to even inspect and measure. And thank goodness, we are quite nimble. And all we did was we flew a drone over the site, took drone footages, and took GPS points, all right, across the site. I was able to do our measurements, all right. So nobody, like they say, nobody was harmed in doing that valuation. Nobody was harmed. But some other people may have said, wow, we need to go and visit this site and put staff in harm's way and all of that. That's just an example of, how, when you need to do certain valuations and all, you have to think that what's technologies out there, to help me, in terms of inspection, and, measurements. Tunde also talked about, the Google tools. But AI is particularly useful for the computation part of things, and when you're doing market analysis part of things, because that way you're able to aggregate. So for when we do, so a lot of valuations either follow a cost approach or a market approach. So when you are following the market approach, you are trying to use past performance of the market, to determine future values. So at that time, traditionally, we'll have called colleagues to get comparables, or you check your own, comparables that you have. But when you have data, that's been aggregated, big data, all right, you are able to get that even more accurately, okay, and and easier and faster, okay, to do those kind of comparables, and that moves you to much higher levels of accuracy, in my own opinion, if you know how to use the data very well. And once there's higher accuracy, then there's also higher reliability. I think this is very important because of one thing. A lot of valuers have been complaining about how much they get paid for their valuations, and it's ironic. I talk about valuation. I think that what you charge for your valuation is very, very synonymous to the value that the requester, the person that's using the valuation, thinks he's getting from it. And I'll give you an example. This is not to toot horn, but there are some banks that Northcote does valuations for. We don't get valuations from them very often because they don't give us their everyday valuations to do. They only call on us when there's trouble, when people are they are arguing about what's the value. So they then come to Northcote because they believe that our data is more accurate, like a standard, right? And they come and they say, Northcote, come and do this valuation for us, guess what? They always pay Northcote multiples of what they pay for that previous valuation, right? I think it's from a perspective of value. Now, I'm not excited about that prospect. I'm not, because they come to me, you know, the firm that I founded. I'm not. I'd rather that all these banks realize that the valuers give accurate information. So they don't need to, so they pay more at the first instance to that first valuer. I think that is what is more sustainable. That way, I will also even get more business. But because we as valuers all use, you know, very accurate data, we use, you know, technologies like, you know, artificial intelligence, leveraging off the big data from it, you know, that's really where, you know, I would rather that the market is at. And, you know, that's how it's that's how these things, you know, begin to change the game. They inform the business we get. There's some firms that say there's no need to calling the valuer. The valuer is good. They feel the valuer is not going to do anything technical, so they are not even bringing the jobs in the first place. All right, and that's not too good. So I think there's lots of room for engagement with technology, you know, to improve that side of, let's say, value chain.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayo. Mr. Taba, do you have a contribution? Or your hands are raised. Do you have any contribution?
Yes, I want to add to the valuation conversation. So this is just in terms of how we have gone through the valuation process. So first of all, for us, this is our view in terms of especially the residential valuations, how we've gone about it and used technology around it. What we wanted to measure, or what we want to measure, is the affinity. How much a particular kind of person is willing to pay for a particular kind of property, and that's how we do our predictive analysis. That's a perspective we come from. So what we do is look at, okay, just the income of the person, the general perspective of people of certain locations. So we would know if you have this kind of, if you're earning this certain amount, you're working in this kind of job, chances are you will buy in this kind of area, and this is how much you're willing to pay when you're in that kind of area. And that's sort of an opposite way of looking at property valuations, because oftentimes we do go, I mean, the principles of valuation is coming from obviously the property perspective, but for us, the way that we're using AI is to say, okay, what kind of people are interested in living in this particular area? How much can they afford to pay? And therefore, what are the features that they want in a particular property, and how much are they willing to pay for it? So what we truly measure when we do our valuations, our instant valuations, is really the willingness and the capability of anybody to be able to pay. And therefore that tells us the value of properties in that area, how high they can get, how low they can get. And as somebody inputs the features of their property, how many bedrooms there are, how many bathrooms, how many whatever, that tells us who its target market is, and therefore how much they're willing to pay and how much they're not willing or capable of paying in the area. Another interesting aspect when it came to valuations is cost, as Tayo was saying. With the instant valuation, we found that we are, because it's instant, it's a fraction of how much people pay to an ordinary valuer. What we end up getting is valuations in the rural areas, and that gives us an advantage because we then get a lot of data of what's happening in the rural areas than in the cities and whatever. So what we have found that we have a combination. So in terms of the transactions that are happening in the cities and the urban areas, they are recorded at the deeds office, so we have access to that data. For the transactions that are happening in the rural areas, they're coming through the instant valuations, and therefore that helps us build a stronger model. So that's just speaking to how we can be able to build models going forward that are able to self-improve and deal with the issues of accuracy in the real estate space. The other very interesting thing is we've always asked, anytime that we had a challenge between valuers and and our model is how accurate is your valuation? And the first question we ask is, how accurate is a human being's valuation? It's an opinion at the end of the day. So, and for us, it's what we are saying is when you use technology, the data that is analyzed is obviously larger than the data that a human being can analyze and form an opinion. And that's how you measure accuracy in that regard. So that's how technology is advancing real estate valuations. And I wish when we talk about the valuation profession, it could advance from calculating, coming up with a figure, to a more analytical view of this is the figure and this is what it means to the buyer or to the seller, as opposed to fighting over calculations, because we're not calculators, we're not computers, we shouldn't be interested in that. That's all. That was my comment.
Okay, thank you, Stebe, for your sharing your insights with us. So because of time, I'll be rounding up very soon. I'll just ask 2 more questions, and then so the next question is for Tunde and Stebe. So my question is, how can collaboration and networking among industry stakeholders help promote innovation and the adoption of new technologies in the real estate industry?
Ladies first.
I just finished talking. So I think collaboration is a wonderful thing. And we just need openness of mind. So for instance, when we built Go Smart Value, it's got 3 main stakeholders. We have got the financial institutions, we've got the valuers, and then we've got the investors. And initially, when we started, we wanted a higher collaboration level to be with the property valuers so that they could be more influential in terms of the inputs that are important, that influence how they make their assessment, and we can have our AI learn from them and be able to assist them and also identify areas in which they need to be automated, and we can be able to facilitate that process. But what ultimately happened is that it's the financial institutions who are much more interested in improving accuracy, and it's the financial institutions that were able to say, hey, this is what we need, this is how we want it to work, and all of that. And in the partnerships or in the acquisition of customers that we have now from a corporate level, we have got the advantage of them saying, becoming partners in what we're building. So when they experience something, it's not, oh my God, this tech is not working. It's, hey, I think we have a challenge here, and there's nothing more privileged than having a client who believes that the challenge that they're experiencing is also their challenge, and therefore we are building together. So in terms of just as industry working together, we need to understand that we can never, real estate is so wide and so big that there are too many puzzles that need to come together. And the more people you work with, the more puzzles you can put together and build more. And also there's so much, technology is also equally big. So there's so much nuance that there's nobody who can take over the entire market and provide a tech solution for every single part. So the more we come together, the more likely we will find different niche areas that require different technological advanced interventions, such that we can have different types of startups that are solving different aspects of the problems that we're dealing with. And it makes the cake much bigger than what we had before, where people were keeping things to themselves, not collaborating, keeping information to themselves, because this slice of cake will be done once I eat it. In this case, the more we are, the bigger the cake gets, and nobody's going to go home hungry. And that's what my view is. And hopefully that's enough time for Tunde to comment.
Great, nice one. So yeah, I think collaboration can get us really far. You know, when I look at like another industry where it will be shocking the amount of collaboration that actually happened, which is the fintech space. It's insane, you know, when like I hear, for example, like companies that are competitors that they are using each other's infrastructure to actually you know, a Payday using FinCry infrastructure, a Cora using a FinCry infrastructure and all of that. And these things, I mean, it's not open to everybody out there. But when I've been in conversation and I know some of these guys, and I see how much they're all leveraging and all using each other's infrastructure, and how quickly this company are able to do a lot. Because if they were to build the infrastructure by themselves or try to build everything, it's going to take them longer time. It's going to take more resources, and they won't be able to do as much as they were able to, or they're able to, you know, on the get-go, right? And I think real estate also, traditional, there's a lot. I mean, it's a harder industry. I mean, based on, I can say that because I'm in the industry. It's a tougher industry in a way. But I think the earlier we start really making collaboration a thing, the better the industry we can all advance. And some of the bottlenecks and challenges we are facing, they can quickly start becoming thing of the past. You know, sometime last year I started saying this, and I've said it in maybe 2 or 3 places now. You know, that's I would even love to see a collaboration between Split and Small. Even though when people look at us now, they see us as competitor. They see us as the flutter with a pay stack of real estate, you know, but there are still fundamental problems that we're trying to solve that we both have not solved. We are all still trying to figure it out. In the rent, for example, in the monthly rental, right? The biggest challenge, I mean, Split is 5 years. We are 5 years. We are literally pioneers in the monthly space, right? But the biggest challenge is still in the monthly rental space is still supply. In as much as we have so many people that want to adopt and pay rent monthly, the adoption from landlords and all of that is still a big barrier, right? So imagine, but small, so we are also trying to figure it out and solve it in our own way, right? We have buy small that we are now using, even though it's very capital intensive, like crazily capital intensive. But again, we are not going to sit around and wait for the market to open up. We need to continue to push the frontier and open up the market. That's one of the role of a leader. You open up a market, right? And Split in their own way also, they are trying to, you know, solve the problem of supply. What if we say, you know what, small, you know, focus on supply, you know, and Split, we focus on the, you know, the adoption from tenants to getting people into the property and just that customer facing side of things, the end user side of things, right? I think at the end of the day, and we all support each other and we all know where the friction, you know, and all of those things. What technology are we using, and what technology Split has that small can leverage on? What technology small has that Split can leverage on? I think we can really move forward. And I mean, I started thinking this direction. I'm a very competitive person, you know, but I'm also learning that there's power in collaboration, and you can't do it all. You can't build it all. You burn out, you stretch yourself in so many ways, right? So hopefully someday, maybe Tayo don't see some of the people we look up to in the industry will probably be the one to bring us to the table and kind of make these things happen, you know, but it's something that eventually I would like to see happen at some point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tunde and Mr. Table, for sharing your insights. I mean, you've also pinpointed that some of the challenges that the real estate sector is actually facing, right, is the problem of collaborating with one another. Everybody sees themselves as competitors, but meanwhile, I mean, those in the Proptech in the real estate space can actually do big things by just collaborating. So thank you for pinpointing that. But before we move to the last question for today, if you go through the chat box, you see a feedback survey form. So you can just click on the link and then fill the feedback survey form. I mean, we need to get feedback from you from the areas of areas that we can improve on our webinars and also your major key takeaways too from this session. So kindly just click on the link on the chat box. So the last question for today's webinar, I'll be directing the question to all our speakers for today. So the question is, what advice would you give to real estate professionals who are looking to integrate these technologies into their business operations? And what steps should they take to ensure a successful implementation? I think we can begin with Michael Owolabi.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. So I think somebody mentioned this. I'm not sure whether it's Tyrio today or Setebe. So again, you probably will not need everything, right? You don't have to copy paste what is happening in the US, in the UK, and just try to implement a replica here. What are the unique challenges that we have here in this part of the world? And how can this technology help us solve some of those challenges? For example, Tyler was mentioning how they did evaluation, where they had to fly drone over the space and to, just to get a semblance of what the correctly should look like. So the fundamental question you should ask yourself if you want to, integrate any of this technology at all is, how does this technology actually solve the fundamental problem my people are facing, right? And what my own product is trying to, solve. By asking that question, you would have a very firm answer as to what technology to leverage. For example, in Split, we are rent focused. So if we start looking around something like blockchain, blockchain and smart contract is like very valuable in the space around ownership transfer, title transfers, right? For rentals, people just pay their rent monthly or as flexible as possible. The question is, how does blockchain really solve our immediate problem in that space right now? Do you get? But for something like AI, so if I have a tenant who is, say, 22 years old, working in a tech company, the question is, how can AI, help me to provide more value to that tenant? So I know that in the next maybe 3-4 years, this person is probably thinking about settling down, having his own family. How can I move that person from maybe the shared apartment they have to maybe a 2-bed, based on the data I had over that tenant over the years that they've been with me? So AI could help someone like me, in Split to provide more value to my tenants, right? Likewise, IoT, how can I, work with developers to, build more smart homes? Like, it should not be an afterthought, but right from inception. So the fundamental question to ask is, how does this technology actually help me solve the problem I'm trying to solve? And how does it make me provide more value to my clients? So that's the fundamental question that needs answers. And that is what will form your opinion as to which of the technology to leverage and how will you leverage them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So we're moving next to Setebe. She'll be dropping off the call very soon, so you can just hear from you before you leave.
All right, thank you. I think the first thing I would say to a real estate professional is that technology is a tool, not a competitor. And once you understand that, then you can get to the phase of understanding how you can be able to use that tool. So like you said, for a professional who wants to now integrate technology into their business, it's beware of the danger of using technology for the sake of technology. That can be overwhelming and overburdening in the business. So don't use it just for the sake of using it. Remember, when it comes to any kind of technology, be it a digital kind or any other kind, what you're trying to save is either time, cost or to improve quality, whether it's quality of product or quality of services. So anytime when you're looking at what kind of solutions you can bring into your business, you should ask yourself, which one of these are you trying to have or to add value from in terms of your business. If you want to increase the quality of the services you're providing to your customer, there's different solutions for that. If you're trying to reduce the cost of providing services to your customer, there's different solutions for that. And also, if you're trying to save time for providing services or product, there's different kinds of solutions for that. And then also, it's very, very important to determine what exactly is causing the problem that you're trying to solve. So if your issue is the quality of time, the quality of service, or the quality of information that you're providing, or that kind of stuff, you need to identify where is the problem in order to identify which solution matches. Because sometimes you find that you have people who are looking at finding tech solutions, and all the real estate tech solutions, all they really need is a CRM system and not necessarily a marketplace, for instance. So you need to know what exactly your problems are in order to identify what you can bring in. Otherwise, it will just be a tedious process of adding this thing, going for training for this thing, trying to implement this thing, and you still have the problem that you wanted to solve initially. The other thing is understand and know that technologies that are built locally also have got a long way to go in terms of getting to that global level of whether it's quality or whatever. Yes, we build for global level, but we are still at the beginning of our growth stages. We're still at the beginning of our development stages. So feedback is absolutely important. So please respond to the surveys that we send, the emails that we send, and all of that, because it helps the tech business to iterate and build solutions that work out for you. And also the implementation process, understand exactly what is supposed to be done and integrate. So whenever you're buying a solution, particularly from the tech businesses in the continent, you have the opportunity to work with them to develop something that is going to be greater. You have the opportunity to come close to whoever developed your solution, to provide your feedback and improve it. And at the end of the day, when you look at the solution, you must ask yourself, does it make your life better or worse? And always be looking for things that make your life better. Thank you.
Thank you, Setabe. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. I know you'll be dropping off the call very soon. We've learned a lot from you. We've learned a lot from you, so thank you so much. Okay, so we're moving to our next speaker, Mr. Tayo. What advice would you give to the real estate professionals who are looking to integrate these technologies into their business operations, and what steps should they take to ensure a successful implementation?
Yeah, I mean, anyone that is using, some of the technology that we are talking about today in, their real estate practice, I mean, first off, I would say you're a trailblazer, an early adopter. And so you are, essentially building rails. You're doing a lot of stuff for the first time, which means that, there might not be a lot of examples, at least locally, for you to, benchmark against. And so prepare to, make some mistakes, give allowance for mistakes, give allowance for growth, and an allowance for learnings. But I think whatever you're doing is very, very critical, because you are essentially charting the course for the next phase of real estate in Nigeria and in an African context. I think that level of understanding and humility is very, very critical in adopting, these technologies, so that you do not get essentially, discouraged by your first set of results, right? It may not work out exactly the way the consultant, suggested that it would work out, but it doesn't mean it's useless. It just means it requires a little bit of tweaking it means that it needs a little bit of more work. All right. Just as we're talking, talking about artificial intelligence, and I mean, we're understanding that artificial intelligence exists when there's a lot of data, for it to pick and work with. And I just think, how much data do we absolutely have, that is digital, that we can then build these models over. So a lot of the machine learning and artificial intelligence models that we're able to build today may not work accurately, like when you build AI models, using financial data, which has been recorded digitally for at least 20 years, right? GT Bank, FCMB, the banks that we use on even you, Jennifer, they can predict what you're going to spend today, Tuesday, because they have all the data of your spending every Tuesday all through your adult life. That is to a high level of, accuracy. But North Court cannot predict what property you're going to buy next. What are your interests? Because you're just on your first or second property, right? And everyone that looks things or is similar to you in some shape or manner, it's just on their first or second property. And do we even have that digital information, right? These are things that are just being built. So, I just wanted to sound out that cautious, I just want to give a balance and advise us to have some cautious optimism, as we begin to say we want to adopt these technologies and all, but then we're definitely better for it. The results will still be better than if we did it analog. I mean, in a couple of years, the results would begin to look even much more stellar than I'm describing right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayo, for your advice to the real estate professionals on this call. So, Mr. Tunde, we also need your advice too. What would you advise? What would you give the real estate professionals who are looking to integrate these technologies into their business operations, and what steps should they take to ensure a successful implementation?
So 2 things. One is don't be afraid to experiment, to explore. There are different solutions out there that you can kind of benchmark on, that you can kind of study and then, build from it. Or if you have a novel, idea, I mean, AI is not, I mean, now AI, everybody is like, they are connecting to the likes of chats, GPT and all of that to be able to get the desired results or apply to different in different industry, like for example, blogging, content creation, so if you're in the real estate space, just look at for solutions that are existing that you can kind of ride on, so you don't have to spend too much time building from scratch. That's one, and explore, experiment. The second advice I would give is, whatever you're building, yes, you're going to build things, you're going to break things, but you also have to think of the interface with your customer, especially for those that are already in business and already have, paying customers, right? We need to manage how we throw these things to the customers. At the end of the day, they will be the ones to use it, but we don't want to throw it to them when it's still, we're just still trying to figure it out. And what I mean is that, of course, there are different stages to development, now technology development, right? So I think one of the ways, one thing we are learning very quickly is like, whatever we are building, because we have a lot that we are building and we are excited about all the things we are building. I mean, some that we are riding on existing protocol or existing platform and things like that. Not to be too quick to kind of put them out there, because you can push your customer away in the process of doing that as well. So there is that patience sometimes you need to exercise, or decorum you need to exercise to kind of test them out, take them through stages of testing before you put them out. so that when you're breaking things, it's not, you're not breaking the entire thing, it's just elements that are being broken. Again, when it's about the customer and when you're already engaging, or customers are engaging with whatever you're building, right? It's not just internally where you're testing and breaking things. You can break as much as you want when it's just within the house internally, right? But when it's out there, there can be repercussion to it. So just kind of know when to put things out, know when to, kind of phase it out a bit in phases. So yeah, that would be my advice to anyone that is already doing anything around using technology to build their products or come up with solution, or anyone that wants to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tunde. So before we move to the next agenda, that's the closing remarks, I'd also like to ask, does anybody here have any question for the panelists? Because nobody wrote down anything, so you can just unmute your mic and then ask your question. Okay, someone has a question.
Hello. Hello, Jennifer.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I was trying to send it via message. I don't know if you got it, but my question has been, I want to thank every speaker that has spoken, Mr. Tayo, Mr. Tunde, Mr. Seth, Mrs. Madam Sethebe, and the other gentleman, which I've forgotten his name. I just want to say thank you very much for all you have said. And my question is, we are talking about, they mentioned, especially the lady and Mr. Tayo, they were talking about how adoption, and Tunde himself too, is talking about how adoption has been to this, the older generation adopting this technology. I know a lot have been said, a lot have been done, and progress to accepting these changes, accepting, adopting, experimenting, and exploring this technology has been very slow. My question is, what more can be done to facilitate this acceptance of this technology? I just want to know, because I know webinars like this and events everywhere, information is passing, is going, and yet we adopting it. It's slow. Accepting these changes, I don't know what would be done for this older generation to actually help them to accept and adopt and explore them. That's my question. Hello, Jennifer, did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. So any of our speakers would like to answer Mr. Simon's question?
Okay, let me take a stab at it, partly because I know I had touched on that. I'm just thinking, when I started my career, right, as an undergrad, one of the first people that got me on, this journey of research and adopting technology was my boss, Alhaji Daudu, who was at least in his late 60s there at the earliest. And he was, if he was alive today, I can imagine that he will be one of the biggest investors in Proptech. No kidding. He was a huge adopter of technology, everything around him. A lot of things I learned on computer, I would learn it on his personal computer, in the office, at home. He would always share books with me and all that. And that lets me know that there are just different kinds of people, right? There are just different kinds of people. And there are different kinds of and we all learn in different ways. Some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners, some people learn by experience. And I think a lot of people in the real estate space only learn by experience. They would only learn, by negative experiences, when business is lost, when there are pain points, and then they have to adopt that technology. Because I'm not sure there is, I'm not sure more webinars are required than already exist. I'm not saying we should reduce the number of webinars. I'm just saying those that do webinars already do them periodically enough, right? Along these lines. Those that speak already speak enough along these lines, and they need to continue to do so. But I think the experience in terms of transaction flow, once it begins to shift towards those that are adopting newer technology, I think that is only when we will see some of the biggest players move towards, adopting newer technology. And so, I mean, that's quite matter of facty, but that's what I perceive, is the only way that, we'll see the kind of change that we want en masse. Some people are making changes just by coming to webinars like this. You've been impacted, you've been touched, and then you say, I'm going to go and do things differently. I'm going to adopt this technology or that one. There will be those people, and I'd rather say those will be early adopters or, and all of that. But I think the majority, would only come in, when there are pain points that signify that business is moving, towards more innovative companies.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I actually have learned a lot from that way you just explained it. But I also remember Setebe mentioned it's also one of the greatest ways that it's a fear of handing over. As much as I like to agree with her, I also think that you just made mention of it right now, that which I'm also thinking that's also a major problem, is not only, I know that there's fear, yes, there's fear that's present, but also it's also a fear of the unknown. They are afraid that it could be that this accepting it, technology might reduce their income flow. It will shorten the amount they usually get, which I'm thinking that's something that you just mentioned. And I also believe that if they're actually in the biggest players are actually shaping it, and as in what they are getting, they're able to it's transparent for others to see, and those other old ones are saying what the new ones, the new big players are doing, and they have adopted it. I think it will also go a long way, actually. I just want to say thank you, sir, for that explanation, and it really answered the question I've been holding on to since. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you, Simon. So I'll just read the last question, and then we can just come to a close for today's webinar. So this question is from Tunji. So his question is, what do the panelists think about crypto adoptions for payments, most especially for diaspora citizens? So Michael, Mr. Tayo, Batunde, would you like to?
So I will attend this. So I think we all agree that, I don't know, this is just a general assumption that everybody understand how crypto has solved this borderless payment problem that we all face, right? I think the biggest challenge right now is actually regulation, especially in this part of the world, in Nigeria. Crypto is not, banks are not allowed to facilitate crypto transactions. We've seen a lot of startups spring up in this line, and we've seen how hard it has been, to thrive right now. But that does not mean that startups are still not thriving. It just means that the biggest challenge for us right now in that space has been government regulation, and the body language of the government is not encouraging when it comes to, facilitating crypto transactions, right? So that has been the biggest challenge. There was a startup that pitched to us one time, I think last year or 2 years ago, who is playing around this space, what we told them, we were ready to actually, integrate and stuff, but before we could finalize processes, they packed up, right? So the biggest challenge in this area is just the body language of the government. I think it's a very, very good thing, because borderless transaction just is, the problem is non-existent, right? With cryptocurrencies, but it's tough. But I think that it's going to get better. Again, it's about education. I think today mentioned it. Let's educate as much as possible. And then when we are building solutions, let's not build in silo. Let's, involve all the stakeholders. That is not to say we need to wait for approvals before we build. It just means that we carry everybody along so that we face less resistance as we currently are facing in this sector. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Okay, so if anybody has any other question, you can just you can send the question to me, or you can just you can reach out to the speakers directly via LinkedIn. You can send your questions to them and they'll definitely answer. So I'll be moving to the closing remarks by the head of programs, Archibald. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Jennifer. Well done for moderating this very insightful session. And I would like to appreciate all our speakers once again. You've dropped a lot of juices here today. I mean, I'm sure everyone was taking notes, just as I was, because one of the things that I'll be looking forward to seeing from the startups that are on this call is innovations where I can view houses from the comfort of my home and not have to step out of my house, because that can be an hassle, so it's really, really been insightful. I'd like to appreciate Setebe in absence and Mr. Michael, Mr. Tunde, and Mr. Tayo once again for availing us their time today. And we hope that all the entrepreneurs on the call can, reach out to you subsequently and get support where needed regarding questions that have not been answered so far. Okay, and I'd like to reiterate once again that kindly help us fill the feedback survey we've dropped in the chat box. We'd like to get responses as to how we can improve the webinar experience for you as we'll be bringing more of this in the near future on the Proptech sector as well as other sectors. Yeah, Alex. All right, I would like to invite Agnes, our communications associate, to facilitate the picture taking segment of this webinar. If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. So yeah, please, I'd like you to indulge us, turn on your cameras, and let Agnes take charge. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone. Please, of waiting for everybody to turn on their cameras as we do this. Okay. All right, we're still waiting for other people to join in. Thank you, thank you. Just give us like 1 minute to turn on our cameras everywhere. And we'll take as soon as it's 12:18, we'll take the picture. All right, I would have loved to call on people's name, but as it is, that's impossible. So we're just going to take the picture like that. Please smile. Thank you. All right.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Agnes. Once again, please remember to fill in the survey in the chat box. Also, the link to our YouTube channel has been posted in the chat. In case you want to recap the session, you can go onto our YouTube channel to catch up on the session much later today. All right, with that, we've come to the close of this session, and we look forward to seeing you on our subsequent webinars, and keep the conversation going on Twitter and LinkedIn as the case goes. Bye for now. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jennifer. Bye, everyone.